5:38.
Yes, I have that.
And we're recording this.
Do you have the folder for roll call, or should we?
No, I do not.
Okay.
So far, right now, the only person we're missing is Wendy, right?
Yes.
And everyone else is here.
Correct.
That will suffice for roll call for now. And the adoption of the agenda, since it's ministerial. Does someone want to move to adopt the agenda? Yeah. Do we have a second? Okay.
Can you all hear okay on the Zoom call?
Okay. We'll skip the approval of minutes until next time due to lack of quorum. And so now we'll move on to introduction of new members.
You can start.
Favorite part of every meeting. My name is Leanne. I am a civil litigation paralegal in Gainesville, Florida. Most of the cases that I work on are geared towards insurance defense and representation of various school boards in Gainesville. I also serve as a mentor for the Alachua County Education Association Take Stock in Children Program. I am the treasurer and legislative advocacy chair for an elementary school here in Gainesville. And I also recently was asked to serve on the advisory committee by Santa Fe for the paralegal studies program. So this is my first county board position, and I look forward to working with everybody.
That's great.
Welcome. Welcome.
You got with a particular firm?
Del Graham.
Oh, there. We're close. Great.
And then we have the other person who is participating virtually.
Okay, Kevin, can you unmute?
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Yes. Yes. This is definitely not the way I would like to start the introduction by having to speak virtually, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, I wasn't able to be present today. I actually am leaving the position, but for the most part, we're all clear. Did want to introduce myself. Again, my name is Kevin Smith. I've lived in the Gainesville, Alachua area since 2016 via Washington, D.C. I am currently the site manager for WCA with a waste hauler that services the greater Gainesville and Alachua County and also two neighboring areas as well. This is my first board position I've ever been on, so I greatly appreciate the opportunity. Any insight that I can bring. We have 115 to 136 diversified employee range there at WCA, and I just feel it's that time in my life to give back to the community from a couple of viewpoints. And again, I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome.
Welcome, Kevin.
Welcome.
I guess we can do intros. How about the those of you on the Zoom call? Jane?
My name is Jill Weintz here. I am the Equal Opportunity Investigator for the Equal Opportunity Office. And I've been working with Alachua County since January of 1999. So really look forward to the new memberships, and it's going to be great. We have updated our document, so I'm waiting for that.
It also wins for the coolest background wall as well.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You'll owe us a song soon, Jill.
I will. I'm working on the album. If I get a vacation,
Next
if I
week.
get the vacation, I will.
That's a hint to me.
definitely.
Something is in my queue to be approved. That's a hint.
Everyone gets a free CD.
If you get vacation, okay, I'm signing
Yeah,
up
that's it.
tomorrow.
All it took.
That's right.
Okay.
For being my VIPs. Thank
There
you.
you go. Oh,
Okay.
and how about Jay?
Hi, I'm Jay Kester. I think this is my fourth year, going into my fourth year on the Human Rights Board. Which I'm also the Disability Advisory Committee's representative to the board. Not sure what else to say. Love being on the board. Love being able to participate. Like where we're headed.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank
Ray.
you.
Thank you.
Courtney?
Me too? Okay. My name is Courtney Wilson. Like Mr. Smith, I'm feeling a little under the weather today, and Jackie would kill me if I came in and got her new board sick. So I am home, and I apologize for that. I am a senior assistant county attorney for Alachua County. I've been with the county since September of 2019. So at this point, I've worked longer from home for the county than I have in person for the county. But this is certainly a highlight. I do the labor and employment and help represent equal opportunity with the county, and representing this board is certainly a high point for me. I enjoy coming to these meetings. I enjoy learning from all of you and hearing your deliberations. And I'm looking forward to getting to know our two new board members.
Hi, my name is Aaron Kelly. I think I put a decade now on the board. 2011, right? Yeah. Been here for a little bit. I'm currently serving as the chair as well. I'm an attorney. Scott and I are at the Gainesville Public Defender's Office. We have more than a decade there as well. I think I hold the attorney spot. That's me.
And Aaron already introduced me, and that's my name is Scott Schmidt. I'm an attorney in Gainesville, and I've been at the Public Defender's Office probably for about a year and a half now. And before that, I was in private practice in Gainesville, and before that, I was living in Marion County. I think I've been on the board for maybe about 2 years.
Feels longer than
Maybe longer than that.
Maybe longer than that.
Yeah.
2020 doesn't count. So
Right, exactly.
2 years before that.
Did we, oh, Kevin just came off camera.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jackie Chung. I'm the Equal Opportunity Manager, and the Human Rights Board. Well, we'll get into that a little bit more, about the board and your role and responsibilities. But this board works with us on furthering the mission and goals of the EO office, and also when it comes to the discrimination complaints that are investigated under the Human Rights Ordinance, they come before this board for determination.
Oh, I'm Mary Nyberger, and I am the staff assistant in the Equal Opportunity Office. I've been with Alachua County for about 15 or 20 years, and you'll get a lot of email from me. I'll try not to overdo it.
Let's actually get us here.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. So we'll move on. Looks like we don't have any old business, so we'll jump straight to new business and start with the EO manager's report.
So I just have a brief report. We don't have any active investigations right now. We did receive a fair housing complaint in January. The basis for that was lawful source of income. It was a Section 8 client. And the allegations were that she was not approved, not because she had Section 8, but because she didn't meet the 3 times rent and income threshold. And the complaint was that the landlord's method of calculating her income was in violation of our lawful source of income provision. And we discussed that with the, I discussed that with the attorney's office. We looked at our ordinance, whether or not our ordinance stipulated how that was to be calculated, and our interpretation was that it does not. It did not address that. So the complaint was administratively closed as, not articulating a violation of the ordinance. And the attorney representing the client came back to us and wanted us to reconsider and said he had some additional allegations regarding a potential violation of the ordinance that he would like to file. So he was advised to amend the charge, and submit it back to us. And some of the concerns, we've been having some discussion about the lawful source of income, calculating the rent to income ratio. And we'll be continuing the discussions with, county leadership about some of the points raised in, the interpretation of the ordinance.
Sounds like there's challenging that statute. In this case, they landlord followed the statute, but they're saying the statute is no problem.
The interpretation was that as written, they see a violation.
Right.
Our interpretation was as written.
Their view, yeah.
Right, we disagree. But some points were raised and stuff. So, we'll be continuing the discussion with the attorney's office and leadership on potential options moving forward.
Amendment. Okay. So that may still come up.
Right. And if the complaint is amended, on other bases or allegations and submitted to us, and will ultimately come back, to the board. Okay.
Good. Thank you for that. And it looks like we'll move into new member training. I'm assuming, is that Courtney?
Yes,
Doing that?
that's Courtney.
Oh,
And unfortunately, Courtney, we won't be able to project your slides up on the big screen.
That is okay. I can promise you that there's nothing thrilling that you will be missing. I will say that today we are going to be covering 3 topics: sunshine law, public records, and voting conflicts. I want to be cognizant of your time on a Thursday evening, so I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. If you've got questions, please feel free to ask as we go. If you guys are anything like me, if I don't write it down or shout it out in the moment, I forget. But I'll also take questions at the end. And I know this is a lot to condense.
I can go photocopy it.
In 20 minutes or so. Often when we do this training with the county commission, we take an hour on each topic. So I don't expect you to be an expert at the end. I'm not gonna do an hour, Jackie. What I'm saying is that the point of this is to bring.
Trying to work on getting it up on the screen. Sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
We might be able to, if you make, Courtney, do you have the PowerPoint slides on your computer?
Yeah, I can share my screen.
No, I'm sharing the screen. We've got it. We can't get it on that one.
Yeah, it's just not coming up on the Zoom.
Audience sees the file. Is that what everybody else sees? They don't see the file.
Yeah, I think that's. the Zoom thing.
What are the rest of Mary is controlling it. She's a host.
Mary,
You can see
Mary,
We can get
Mary,
it on here. Sit that one up there.
Mary, if you put Courtney as a,
A host. But what
as
are you
an
guys
admin-
seeing? What are you
as
guys
an-
seeing, Jill?
Jill, can you see the PowerPoint?
no,
No.
I can see 4 files.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, I see 4 files.
I think that's the Zoom view.
Oh,
you need to give Courtney permission as the speaker or presenter or whatever that would be called, administrator. There you go.
My screen.
Yes, yes.
okay.
Can you put Can you put it in full screen? There you go. Whoa,
Perfect. That worked.
slideshow, yes.
From the beginning.
Okay, now we're viewing Courtney's screen.
Yeah, and then Courtney
Okay.
put his control.
Yeah, let's go ahead from there.
Okay, Courtney, can you do slideshow?
Yeah.
There we
There-
go.
You see that now? Okay.
Yep,
Looks wonderful.
yes.
Okay.
You will get this on the.
Sorry.
Not today, but.
Are you guys ready?
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, our first topic today is the Sunshine Law. And this first started in the Florida Constitution, which says that all meetings of any collegial public body of the executive branch of state government or of any collegial public body of a county, municipality, school board, etc., at which official acts are to be taken or at which public business of such body is to be transacted or discussed shall be open and notice to the public. So basically in Florida, we have open government, and Florida and Missouri are considered to be two of the forerunners amongst the states in having open government. So while we have that provision in the Constitution, it's then codified in Florida statute section 286.011, which basically says the same thing, is that if you're conducting public business, it's got to be at a public meeting, open to the public, and that reasonable notice of such meetings must be given to the public. Both the Constitution and Florida statutes are strictly enforced, and while there are exceptions to this, the exceptions are strictly enforced. So if in doubt, you can assume that whatever you're doing is a public meeting. So you guys are an advisory committee, but you've been created by the Board of County Commissioners, and so you are still subject to the Sunshine Law, even if your recommendations aren't binding. So even if you make a recommendation to the County Commission and the County Commission ignores your recommendation, it's still a Sunshine Committee. You still have to follow the tenets of the Sunshine Law. Okay, and so when we say meeting, we don't just mean meetings like we're doing right now. The forum kind of doesn't matter. If it's communication that's either over telephone or email, social media through a third party, that could still be considered a meeting. And it's considered a meeting if your topic is any matter that may foreseeably come before your committee for action. So even though you're not aware that it's coming before your committee, even though it's not on any agenda, even though you might not have talked to Jackie or Mary or Jill about it, if it's something that could foreseeably come before your committee, then it could be the subject of a sunshine violation. Sometimes people get in trouble that, like tonight, you guys are having, well, I guess we're having a workshop now, but theoretically you're having a public meeting before the gavel, if you will, is banged. If you're having a conversation about this board prior to a board meeting, that could be a sunshine violation. So you're only supposed to be conducting the business as the meeting is officially going on. So the actual requirements of the sunshine are that the meeting is open to the public, that it is reasonably noticed to the public, that minutes are taken and promptly recorded, and that there's an opportunity for public comment. So sometimes I think that's what trips some people up, is if they're having a conversation with someone and it's directly after the meeting. They feel like they're still in the county building. Everyone's still hanging around, but at that point, members of the public might have left because the meeting is officially over, and so there's no more opportunity for public comment, or it might no longer be open to the public. Sorry. So the notice requirements, all that's required is that we have the notice be reasonable. So that includes listing the name of the board or the committee. We can't just say a county board or committee is meeting. We need to say that it's the Human Rights Board, but we don't have to post an agenda. You have to notice the location and the time of the meeting, and it needs to be a reasonable manner of advertisement. So that doesn't necessarily mean advertised in the paper, but what's a reasonable way for the public to know? So the county on its website lists all the public meetings. So that's what we do. In lead time, it's got to be up and posted for a reasonable period of time. What's reasonable depends on the circumstances. If it's a regular board meeting, we usually say at least 7 days. In some emergency situations, that might be less time, 24 hours possibly. As we mentioned before, it has to be open to the public. And so what that means is that it must be within Alachua County in a public building. There can't be any physical or psychological barriers to entry. So a physical barrier might be, we can't have a meeting on the second floor of the county administration building if we didn't have access to an elevator. So we can't lock doors. You know, the public has to be able to physically get in. Psychological barriers would be that it might be inappropriate for us to have a meeting at a church where someone feels uncomfortable attending. If it was a country club that doesn't allow female members, that might be a psychological barrier. There was a case in Florida where one, I believe it was a city commission, they had a cafe, I guess it was a fancier location than Alachua County, but they had a cafeteria within their public building, and their commission would go before their, I can't remember if it was a city or county, but anyway, they would go before their board meetings and they would have dinner and they would invite the public to come. And so the public could ask questions and speak to the commission. And it was found that that was a barrier to members of the public to attend, because there were some people, members of the public, that couldn't afford to eat in the cafeteria. And so they felt like they were limited and they couldn't go and participate in these public discussions because they couldn't afford to eat in the cafeteria. The inaudible utterance rule, part of the meeting being open to the public means that once the public is there, they have to be able to hear what's being said. So it would be, I'm sorry, did you have a question? Oh, sorry, that was must have been my computer messing up. So it would be inappropriate for two board members to be whispering during the meeting so that the members of the public couldn't hear. And sometimes it might be an innocuous or innocent thing where you're asking someone for a piece of gum or a pencil. And so it might not be a sunshine violation because you're not talking about anything substantive, but it's certainly a barrier to the public if they feel like you're having discussions, if you're passing notes. What we see of this more lately is text messaging. and that during meetings, board members will be text messaging each other about things going on during the meeting. And that would be a way that the public's clearly not able to participate because they can't see what's happening. They don't know that that communication is happening. Right to record. We're recording this meeting. The county records all of its meetings, but members of the public are still allowed to come and record. The meeting's open to the public, and as long as they're not being a disturbance, then they have a right to record meeting. Minutes, we have to have written minutes of all of our sunshine meetings. They have to be promptly recorded, and they have to include votes, action, and significant discussion items. They don't have to be verbatim minutes, but you have to be able to look at it and see what happened. In addition to the public being allowed to attend these meetings, they're also allowed to participate and be heard at these meetings. And so before formal action is taken, before a vote is taken, members of the public have to be able to be heard during that decision-making process. It doesn't necessarily have to be the night of the final vote, but it has to be at some point in the discussion. So we allow for public comment before all of our votes. It also has to be within reasonable proximity to the official action, which is again why we allow for public comment at all of our meetings. It is subject to reasonable rules of conduct. So the county can limit and say that public comment on each item per individual will be 3 minutes. You can put a time restriction on it. You can also say that members of the public can't bring signs or foghorns, or I was at a public meeting one time where a member of the public brought a boombox to play loud noise in the background while they were giving their public comment. The county is allowed to say that that's disruptive and in violation of our rules. Okay, so these are just some scenarios. If you, and I apologize, I'm not there, so this might not be very interactive. But if you receive an email from your board liaison and you respond, do you guys think that that in this scenario, this would be Mary or Jackie? And you know, we don't have to make this interactive. I'll just do it. If you guys receive an email from Mary or Jackie and it is just to you, then you can feel free to respond. Mary and Jackie or Jill, if Jill is sending you emails, are not a member of your board. So discussions with them are not a violation of the sunshine. Now, if one of them sends you an email and the rest of the board is copied, you need to be careful about replying all, because if you reply all back with a substantive response to what they've sent you, that can be considered a violation of the sunshine. If one of you published a newspaper op-ed and another member published a rebuttal, that might not seem like it's a meeting, but if it's two members communicating about a matter that foreseeably could come before the board, it could be considered a sunshine law violation. If you're filing that, if you are publishing that rebuttal to that commissioner, if you're trying to communicate to that commissioner your position on an item. You meet a friend at the grocery store and they tell you that another member is voting a specific way on an issue. We call that a daisy chain. So even though you yourself aren't calling another board member and telling them how you're going to vote or how you feel on an issue. You've indirectly done that. And the courts do not look favorably on that. So that which you can't do directly, you can't do indirectly too. And that includes using staff as an intermediary. You're welcome to share with staff your opinions. You're welcome to talk to staff, but you can't ask Jackie to go to another board member for you and plead your case or give your opinion. We've had this come up before where members of the advisory board then go to the board of county commissioners to speak. You are not a member of the board of county commissioners, so therefore it's appropriate for any of you to have a conversation with a member of the board of county commissioners. That's not a violation of the sunshine. You're not part of the same board or committee. But if two of you are there and having that conversation with a commissioner or in front of the county commission, that could be considered a violation of the sunshine. So usually in these situations, we recommend that if you're going to go and speak at a county commission about a matter for your board, that you all decide in advance who's going to go and have that discussion. And if that can't be resolved, to certainly talk to staff and we can see what we can do to resolve that and maybe make it a joint meeting or do what we can there. So what happens if you do violate the sunshine? So kind of there's more than one penalty for a violation of the sunshine. On a county level, the thing that's of large concern is that you voided whatever action you took that was part of your violation of the sunshine. So if you violated the sunshine and then there was a vote, that vote is now void. So whether that's an ordinance, a contract, whatever it is, it's no longer valid. Now we can cure that. We can have another public meeting where you have a full and complete debate of the issue, giving the public an opportunity to come and participate. It can't just be a rubber stamp. It has to be a full debate again, but that can cure the defect and you can move forward with whatever that item was, that contract, that resolution, that action. But there still could be violations for the individual members who violated the sunshine. So best practices for advisory boards for the sunshine is to keep the public business in the public. If in doubt, assume that it's something that needs to be taken care of at a public meeting. Construe possible topics that might come before your board as widely as possible. And then ask staff, ask myself, before you send something, before you publish something, before you have that conversation. That's what we're here for, is to answer your questions. And we are all good at fixing problems after they come up, but we are even better at resolving things before they become an issue. And so there is no stupid question when it comes to this. Please ask. We know that this is new for a lot of you, and so any questions on sunshine issues? No? Okay. Part 2 is public records law. And this is out of the Florida statutes. This is section 119. Every person who has custody of a public record shall permit the record to be inspected and copied by any person desiring to do so at any reasonable time, under reasonable conditions, and under supervision of the custodian of public record. So what is a public record? A public record is anything that's made or received in connection with official business, anything that's used to perpetuate, communicate, or formalize knowledge. Much like the Sunshine Law, what matters here is the content, not the medium. So this is, again, emails, social media posts. I have a bad habit of writing on sticky notes everywhere. Sticky notes can be a public record. It's not limited to written documents. So this meeting tonight is being recorded. It's now a record, even though it's not a piece of paper. So, and what is considered a request? Requests do not need to be in writing. They can be over the telephone. They can be in person. We cannot ask a requester to identify themselves. They can be anonymous. And we cannot ask a requester why they want a record. So if somebody comes into the solid waste, since Mr. Smith brought up WCA, if somebody comes in and wants to see all of the code violations for members of the Human Rights Board for solid waste infractions, they can do that, and hopefully none of you have any, but if you do, we have to produce that, and that's even if it's your neighbor who's your nemesis and wants to do it to embarrass you in the neighborhood. You don't have to have a good reason. You don't have to have any reason. If they want to wallpaper their bathroom with Jackie's HR file, somebody can
Thank
do
you
that.
for throwing that out there.
It's a thick file, and so you could probably do your whole house. What's also important, though, is that it has to be an existing record. Somebody can't come in and say, I want to make a standing public records request for all documents associated with the Human Rights Board from this date forward. That's not a public records request. It has to be about an existing document. Now, they can keep coming back in every week and ask for new documents, but it can't be a standing request. And it can't be that we create a new record. If we have the record, then we have to produce it, assuming that there's not confidential or exempt information in there. So in the case of Jackie's HR file, there's probably going to be some confidential and exempt information. Her social security number, we wouldn't produce that. But if the record itself doesn't exist, someone can say, I want a spreadsheet with, I don't even know, every employee at the county and their birth date. And if we don't have that, we don't have to produce a spreadsheet that has every employee in the county with their birth date. Now, if they just want, everybody's job application that has their name and birth date, we can produce that, but we don't have to create a new spreadsheet for that. What to do if you get a request? To be honest, if any of you get a public records request, you should contact Jackie or Mary right away, and they'll take care of it, and they'll follow the county's procedures on this. But it's definitely not something to wait. We're given a reasonable time to respond to public records requests, so it is serious. I can't imagine that many would come directly to you, but if they do, you should let staff know right away. Now, staff might reach out to you and say, we've received a public records request. Do you have any of the following documents? And if you do, then we would need you to pass those on to us. Probably the biggest question we get from our various boards and committees is whether your personal notes are considered a public record. And the answer to that is every attorney's favorite answer, which is it depends. Yeah. Depends on our whim of the day. But in general, if your notes are only for your own personal recollection, then it's not a public record. So it's not even an exemption to a public record. It's just not considered a public record. But if you are sharing those notes with someone else, then it's considered a public record. And like I said, there are various exemptions to the public record. It's actually a lot. So I'm not going to go over them because they're long and tedious, and unfortunately not even all found in the same chapter of Florida statutes. But if you get a request, if you've got a concern, or if we come to you with a request, then we're happy to talk about any possible exemptions that there might be. And we do look for those, not as a way to limit what the public can get, but to protect our employees and board members as much as we can. Any questions on public records?
So a quick question, as a former guardian ad litem, I know that that falls under the category of exempt as far as personal identifying information.
Yes.
To what extent are the board members' personal identifying information available? Like if someone said, I want all the board members and their home address.
Right, so yes, if you're a former guardian ad litem volunteer, then your home address would be confidential. Usually people in HR, public service, so sheriff's department, firefighters, oh gosh, now I'm drawing a blank on
Codes enforcement.
codes enforcement. I can't, what is the prosecutors? Prosecutors are on there, judges are on there, and then that's usually also identifying information about their children.
Public defenders are as well.
So I
If
guess
we
my
opt in.
question was then, considering it is exempt, if there was a public records request for that, how is that information maintained? Because obviously nobody here would know that I was a former guardian ad litem.
I was just about to say that because in our membership roster, we provide that information for the members,
Okay.
not knowing, that it was.
It's on your
exempt.
application.
Right,
Okay.
and we have it on the membership roster. which
Okay.
We share with the members, so
I'm curious.
I guess maybe we want to not have the addresses on there. Because there isn't really a need for.
We just want to know that you live in the county, but that's,
Oh yeah, that's fine. I was just curious. That was my only.
So Jackie and Mary, what we could do, so what we do like on when we hire new employees, we ask them if they have an exemption, because sometimes we'll have people that maybe were former law enforcement and now they're doing something else and we might not know that. And so maybe that's something we could update the application, and there could be a check mark for that.
It's a standard board, advisor board application form, for the ones that go to the commission. So that's the one that would need to be amended.
Okay, well, we can talk to Gina
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you don't fall in one of the exemptions, your address would be part of the
Right,
public
so
record.
you would have to check that box and explain, I guess.
Thank you.
Good
That's good.
question.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I promise I'm moving along. Okay. Voting conflicts, I won't read for you all of this. I will say in general, chapter 112 covers ethics for public officers and public employees. But the main gist for a voting conflict is that if there is any measure, anything that you're voting on that would inure to your special private gain or loss, or that you know would inure to the special private gain or loss of any principal that you work for, then it's a voting conflict and you cannot vote. So in Florida, there is a statutory requirement that if you are on a board or committee and you are present for the vote, that you must vote. You are not allowed to abstain from a vote. And the idea there is that, if you're on the Board of County Commissioners, you've been voted in by the people. For you all, you've been selected by the Board of County Commissioners to represent the best interests of the county. And they don't want people to get hard items, get controversial items, and then have a whole bunch of people just say, I decline. I don't want to do that. So the baseline rule is if you're present, then you're voting. Unless you have a conflict of interest. And in those cases, then you cannot vote. It's not a choice. You cannot vote. There is another exception that actually came up in this board, and so I probably should have put it on here, but if you are dealing with a quasi-judicial vote, so sometimes on this board, you're wearing kind of your, what I like to call your legislative hat, and you are voting on an action that would affect everybody. You're voting on something like Jackie was talking about earlier, if there were ever revisions to the human rights ordinance, and that came before you to vote on a recommendation to the board, you'd be wearing your legislative hat. But often when you are presented with a case, when someone's filed a complaint and it's brought before you to vote on, then you're wearing kind of your judicial hat and what we call quasi-judicial. And in those cases, if you cannot listen to the evidence and make a decision and be fair, then there's an exception for those. That's slightly different from conflict of interest. So it's not just would it inure to your special private gain or loss, but can you not be fair and impartial? So as I just said, a voting conflict where you can't vote is if it inures to your own special private gain or loss, or if you know that it would inure to the special private gain or loss of a principal, so a company that you work for, a relative, or a business associate. So what is a special private gain or loss? It's got to be an economic benefit or loss. And what is special depends on the facts, because that's how lawyers stay in business. And so there's a couple of different tests, and I will spare you those, but one of the most common is the size of the class of affected persons. So if something that would only benefit you, then yeah, that's probably going to be considered a special private gain or loss. If it's something that we're talking about repaving the road and all the roads within Hale Plantation, and you live in Hale Plantation, well, that's probably too large of a class of person, and we wouldn't say that that was a special private gain for you. It also can't be too speculative or remote. It kind of has to be something tangible. So who's a principal, it can be an employer, a client, but it is in the present. It's not past or future employment. Who is a relative? Unfortunately, in Chapter 112, as I said, with all the ethics, who's a relative changes based on what section you're in. So I don't expect you to memorize who a relative is here, because it's different than in the gift section. But if you have a question, if something you think might affect one of your relatives, then you can ask us. So if you have a voting conflict, you cannot vote. You need to declare it at a public meeting that you're not voting and why. And then you have to file a Form 8B, and staff can get you that and help you fill that out. So once again, with, I can't remember if I said it for Sunshine or public records, but it counts for all of them. We're better on the front end than trying to fix a mistake later. So if you think that you've got a conflict, if you see something coming up on the agenda, and I know that, you know, sometimes you guys don't have everything in advance because these are kind of quasi-judicial things that are presented to you. But if you think that you have a conflict during the meeting, even, then we want you to say something, and we can always take a recess and discuss it. We can always push an agenda item, but we'd rather get this right. So if you've got a question, let us know, because we can then, you know, the goal is for you to be able to vote if you can. So we can research issue and get you a good response. This is just kind of a copy of what that form looks like. So, yeah, this is best practices. So follow your gut, give Jackie or Mary a call. Don't participate in the discussion. If you think that you've got a voting conflict, say something right away and we'll take care of it. And if we know in advance, then we like to be able to file those Form 8Bs. And this is mostly for the lawyers in the room. If you guys can't read it, it just says, and then like a fool, I said, let's not run this by the legal department.
The flash drive.
It depends.
It does. It always depends. And there's, you know, some things, I'll be frank, it's sometimes your intention doesn't matter. If it's a violation, it's a violation. But we'd like to keep everybody out of trouble as much as possible. So I think I went a bit longer than I planned, and I apologize for that. I know this is not fun stuff. I know this is kind of dry. But if you go to bed tonight dreaming of public records requests, I know Jackie's already smiling, she is. Please feel free to reach out. Like I said, there's a million different scenarios on this. There's a million cases, and it's a area of the law that honestly keeps evolving, especially with the proliferation of social media and technology. And so if you've got questions, then please let us know.
Thank you,
Okay.
Courtney. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Courtney.
Thank you.
Owe me because you took my time. But
Now I feel better.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
get
So
better
now it's not
soon.
on that screen again. I don't know
Have
how
you ever
to
got
get-
the screen sharing?
Yeah.
Going into the human rights ordinance?
Yes, I'm just gonna do a brief overview if we can get it, because you guys can't see the screen, right? That is. Maybe share screen.
Are you asking us at home if we can see Jackie?
Yeah.
No,
No.
we don't.
Not at the moment, no.
Can you see it?
There
Now
it is.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna do a very brief overview here and we can pick up back on that. And this is mainly for the new members. So we have a Human Rights Board handbook that we used to do the old-fashioned way in paper. See, you know, our chair proudly brings his.
10 years old.
But now
That's
that
right.
we're in the virtual world, we decided to make this electronic. So we've kind of updated it a little bit, and we wanted to know, ultimately this is, we'll probably put this on EO's website, but we could also provide a flash drive or email, you know, the information so that you have it updated. So I was just gonna go through a brief overview here. So if you scroll to the top, Mary. Yeah. So this is the table of contents. It includes a brief overview of the EO office. The human rights ordinance is there and the different articles that cover like employment, housing, public accommodations. We'll go into that a little bit. Some training materials as a resource for you as board members, understanding, like the different theories of discrimination, things that are prohibited, discriminatory practices, discrimination by type and issues. Some resources if you'll scroll on down there as we go through. The light just came on. Did somebody walk in? And then there's a documents folder to not create one huge large file, that just has some information in there, including Courtney's presentation. So if you scroll on down here, this is just a little bit about who we are and the mission of the office to secure for employees and citizens of Alachua County freedom from discrimination and equity under the law in the areas that we enforce: employment, discrimination, housing, and public accommodations. Kevin and Leanne, do you know what public accommodations means in this setting here? When you reference public accommodations?
Do you mean as far as like city structure or is anything general that the public has access to?
Actually, it's the opposite. It's really private businesses.
Okay.
If only they will change that. 'Cause I ask that question every time for you because yes, we get that answer, or it's usually something along the lines of accommodations for individuals with disabilities. People, will say that. But a place of public accommodation is a private entity that provides goods and services to the general public.
So within a private.
Right. Is Kevin still on? Don't know if you heard the.
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, all right. Did you hear the conversation about public accommodations?
No, I didn't. I think it's because you were kind of maybe away from the mic.
Okay. So I was just explaining there. Can you see the slide that's up that talks about or that shows our mission statement?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay. And you'll see that last line where it references the 3 areas that are covered under the Human Rights Ordinance: employment, housing, and public accommodations.
Yes.
And I was just explaining that public accommodations is really private entities that are open and providing goods and services to the general public.
Okay.
It's not public like government, it's actually private businesses.
Private businesses, understandable.
A list of the services provided by our office. And all of you're going to get this. I don't need to read through it. I'm just kind of rushing through in the interest of time. We have 3 advisor boards that work with the EO office. We have this one, the Human Rights Board. We also have a Citizens Disability Advisory Committee that works with us on ensuring that county program services and our buildings are accessible to individuals with disabilities. And Jay, who is not on screen. He's on screen over there because I can't even see over there. Jay is our representative from that committee who serves on this board. And then we have an internal one for employees. That committee is still on down there. That's us. And then the next should be, so this is the Human Rights Ordinance, a little bit about the purpose of the Human Rights Ordinance. And then also included, we have links that go directly to, no, stay right there on page 4. Here, when you click on that, rather than providing copies of all of this stuff like we did before, this is, a link to the Human Rights Ordinance on Unicode, and then links to specific sections like the Human Rights Board, the responsibilities, the powers and duties. You can just click on that right there. Article 2 covers equal employment opportunity, and it spells out what's prohibited in terms of employment discrimination. Article 3 is fair housing, and it spells out, what's prohibited there. And Article 4 is equal access to places of public accommodation. So as new board members, hopefully you'll take some time to read through that and understand what the ordinance says, what's prohibited, the exceptions, so that when a complaint comes before the board for you to review and make a determination, you have, the understanding. And you can, I know we're rushing through this today, so it's not really considered training, but hopefully, you can read through this when we provide it, and then, feel free to ask questions at the next meeting. Also included are some training materials, and the EEOC, if you have never visited their website, it provides a wealth of information. And I'm sorry, I keep turning that way, I can't see Kevin. Kevin, can you hear me, Kevin? I want to make sure that you are also hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So EEOC.gov is a good resource for just about everything related to employment discrimination, because they're the federal enforcement agency for employment discrimination. And they have guidance documents for all the different types, based on race, color, religion, national origin. So you can actually take the time to read through by specific category. They have very thorough guidance documents there. Also included there on the theories of discrimination, that's coming from the EEOC's website as well. And the link is there to get some more information there. I think the next is just some resource documents. So that's EEOC. Then you can go to ada.gov. This is where you'll get information. This is the Department of Justice, and they are the enforcement agency for the Americans with Disabilities Act, except for Title I. The ADA has 5 titles. Title I covers employment, and that is enforced by the EEOC because they are employment-related discrimination complaint. There's also HUD for housing, fair housing issues, and FCHR, that's the state of Florida, Florida Commission on Human Relations, and that's a state agency, I guess that's equivalent to the EEOC. And is it 760, chapter 760?
Yep.
Isn't Florida anti-discrimination chapter 760
Yes.
of state statute? So these again are other resources that provide a lot of information that will be helpful to you as board members in the work we do. Is there anything else after that?
Not Florida.
And then so in addition to this, we will have a folder. If you scroll back up to the very first slide, the last tab says a folder with additional information, and that's where we provide things like the membership roster, the board of county commissioners, their rules of procedure and governing, advisory boards, Courtney's presentation, and this is an evidence analysis that we use in the office, for analyzing discrimination complaints. So all of that will be in a folder, and we'll go from that to that.
Okay.
But if someone loves paper and still wants paper, we'll be happy to provide.
We can make paper.
At general meetings or when an issue is being discussed, are the documents pertaining to that issue available, or would we have to bring our own copy? One of the copies. So it's actually
well, what we generally do is a few days before the board meets to review a case, we actually send you a copy of the case.
Okay.
So you have that, and you could, pull up the resource.
Okay, you do get it in advance.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's kind of hard to read that in the meeting. Yes.
I was envisioning a very long meeting. So.
Not usually too long. The other thing we do is if we get that case part of our discussion, if something does come up, we've got a lot of times we're like, well, we've gotten this document from the employer. Can we see that? We usually just kind of move to the next meeting and they'll provide it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that insight. That was going to be a question I had. Thank you.
Okay. So I think that's it in terms of the handbook, and again, we don't have time to sort of delve into any of this in any detail today, but I think it's also pretty pretty self-explanatory, I'm walking through, and the
Mhm.
resources, we don't need to invent the wheel. There's a lot of good information out there, and it's provided for you. So how would you, Kevin and Leanne, like to receive this? Would you like us to mail you a flash drive? Is an email
Email is
okay?
fine.
An
The email link is fine.
Email, please. I prefer email.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. And on the membership roster, before we send this out, we're gonna edit it to make sure that we take. I guess we can just take everybody's home address off. We really don't need to provide it, really. Yeah.
Only every time it came up is just to make sure that it is the correct mailing address, because you mail the actual case.
Yeah. So it's
Sometimes in the
important to
past
us,
where
right?
it wasn't getting through.
Right. That was the main reason for sharing it too, so that at the meetings, folks could take a look and let us know right then and there. Because sometimes folks move, forget to notify us, and they didn't get the case or, the paperwork. So it's really just a matter of letting us know if the address changes. And I think we'll just go ahead and take it out, everybody's home address.
Yeah.
Do you mind the phone numbers? Well, they're not even supposed to be talking to each other. So we don't even need the phone numbers. We just need to have all of that
No, we
to
really
reach you,
don't.
but we really don't need to share it.
It's on the application that's part of the
Yeah,
record, but on what we are emailing around,
yeah.
Right.
we can
Yeah.
easily
Just
remove
your
that.
names and terms. So that,
Names, terms,
yeah,
position.
yeah, we'll take that off.
An
Okay.
easy fix.
Any questions? I was just gonna talk a little bit for the new members about some of the other things we're doing in the county. I don't know if you're familiar with the Truth and Reconciliation Project that the county is engaged in now. And that,
Sounds very familiar, but I do not know.
and that is, Right.
Yeah, definitely.
so that is, researching and documenting and acknowledging the county's history in racial terror and lynchings in the past. Florida had a lot of those back in, so most of this is Reconstruction era, I think, is how far back. We're going up to, I think, 1950 is the cutoff. We're working with the Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, Alabama, and Brian Stevenson, the head of that project, and they're spearheading this on a national level. And they have for each county at the lynching memorial in Montgomery, Alabama, a stone marker documenting the known lynching victims. And part of the project that different communities are engaged in is going through a Truth and Reconciliation project, a long process that is in conjunction with EJI. They are aware of what we're doing. And as you complete the different parts of it and get to, there's no one size fits all for every community. They want each community to sort of engage in their own process discussions and so about this. But ultimately, it's to get our marker back to Alachua County. And so far, so what we have is a group that's spearheaded by Commissioner Chestnut, and it's called the Alachua County Community Remembrance Project. This is a subcommittee of citizens working with us on this, and each municipality has its own subcommittee. So we had Newberry that Newberry sort of took the lead on this to be the first in Alachua County to do this. Their mayor Jordan Marlowe is very, very proactive in this area. And they had a soil collection ceremony on February 5th. The city of Gainesville had a soil collection ceremony on Saturday. And I don't know, did anybody go to that event? But it's available online. It was a beautiful event. We actually had some descendants of a lynching victim that were found, and they came from Orlando for the event. And the purpose of the soil collection ceremony is to kind of find the areas where the documentation says the lynching occurred or most likely occurred, if we couldn't, verify that 100%, but more than likely it was in that general area. and collect soil from that area. And the soil is put in jars. We keep a set here in Alachua County. A set goes to the lynching memorial in Montgomery, Alabama, as a way of commemorating them and having a ceremony that is almost like giving them the funeral or recognition that they didn't have, you know, when they were hung or shot or murdered and, you know, not accounted for again. So I just wanted to share that we had a beautiful soil collection ceremony in the city of Gainesville. And I think next up is Alachua. And I'll keep the board, you know, informed. Alachua, they don't have a date yet, and it's more than likely going to be late fall. But it's it's blossoming into more than we thought, and having more citizens involved and participating has really been, you know, very encouraging to see. So that's it for me. Anything else, Mr. Chair, on that agenda?
No, that's great. I appreciate it. Like I said, as we go, we'll obviously get more into this each meeting as well. I think that gives us 2-3 minutes for public comment. I don't see any. We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Do you have a second? A second for me. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all for joining online as well.
All right, thanks, everybody.
And thanks
Good
again,
night.
Courtney, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Good night.
It's 6:50, by the way.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Jules. Guess next time we will.
Even more reason for a vacation, right?
Yep.
Yep.
So we all remember what Jill said now. If I sign this tomorrow,